Awesome. Welcome everyone to A Systems Approach to Collaborative Fundraising. We're thrilled you can join us. We have an amazing panel of speakers from all over the country who are going to share their experiences. But before we get to everyone who's going to introduce themselves, we want to get to know all of you. So I'm going to turn it over to Lizzy Hazeltine, who is going to lead a brief exercise to get a sense of who is in the room, and we'll go from there. So Lizzy, take it away.
Thanks, Yossi, and thanks to the LendFest team for making it so easy to spend some time with you talking about these important topics. Interestingly, of course, we've got a mix of folks in the room. We want to get a better handle on who's here with us. So we're asking you to, if I'm going to go through a list of descriptors for different types of work, if you will throw up a reaction emoji or put a plus in the chat, if this describes your work, please, just so we can sense who's here. So number one is, I work for a news organization interested in learning more about collaborative fundraising. Toss an emoji. Okay, some reacts there. Okay, a plus in the chat from George. Thank you. Next, I work for a news organization that's already involved in a collaboration, and I'm looking to grow our fundraising operations. Who falls into that bucket? Some of our panelists, Glenn is identifying himself already as in that bucket. You'll be able to join a breakout with him later. All right, third, I work for a funder that is interested in learning more about collaborative funds. So funders collaborating with other funders, that's me. Anybody else in the room? Bueller. All right, that's okay. Bob says no, not okay. Next, I work for a funder that is interested in learning more about, oh, well, already went through that. Whoops. I work for a funder that is already part of a collaborative fund, already in a pooled fund, already with AJP or another organization that's pooling, collaborating with funds. Okay. SJN folks, of course, our hosts here at LendFest. Awesome. Karen, awesome. Great to have you all with us too. Throw up a reaction or an emoji if you work for a journalism support organization. All right, Jessica Howling Wolf, Todd. Todd says me, me, me. Stephanie Snyder, yes, definitely, awesome. Lots of people consider themselves journalism support organizations, in addition to also, seems like there's an overlap with the collaborative funding. And if none of this fits you, react it up. Tell us who else doesn't fit into these predetermined buckets that we laid out in advance. Excellent. All right, y'all, thank you. And thanks to those of you who turned on your video. If you're comfortable and in a spot where you can turn on your video, we can fake like we're in the same room much more easily if we can see your faces. Totally respect if that's not a thing that folks can do right now too. All right, so we've got a little bit of a sense of who you are, and if you want to introduce yourself in the chat going forward, we'd welcome you to do that. But we also want to introduce ourselves. So I want to pass to Hilda to get us kicked off with like who we are and where we're coming to this conversation about both collaborative funding, collaborative journalism, and funding, all of the above. So Hilda, over to you.
Thank you, Lizzy. My name is Hilda Gurdian. I am publisher of La Noticia, which is a local independent news organization in Spanish. We are based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we serve all the Latino community in North Carolina. We are part of the local news ecosystem here in Charlotte, and we're very happy to be there. And that we also joined the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative at the very beginning. So we've been in this collaborative for 2 years, which is the time that collaborative has been in place. We use best practices both on an individual basis and as a collaborative to raise funds for our organizations. And Liza is going to elaborate a little bit more about what are the best practices that we use to raise funds for our Charlotte Journalism Collaborative, CJC. But I want to share with you experiences and how we have dealt with fundraising. As everything in life, fundraising for us at La Noticia has been challenging and has been beneficial, of course. And at the end, I can say that it has been, the final result has been good, because about 30% of our annual income comes from grants. So we must be doing something good, but we do face challenges. One of the challenges that we face at La Noticia is many times we have been taken out of the competition for a grant just because we are a for-profit organization. And though that is something that places us in a position to defend ourselves in front of those grant funders. And then we have had to explain that, I mean, the decision to approve a grant to an organization doesn't necessarily have to be with the legal status of that organization, but mainly on whether that organization produces high quality journalism, or is that organization really engaged with that community? Are they really giving value to that community, to those, they giving news and information that is valuable to the community, and things like that, and not just having to look into whether they are nonprofit or for-profit. And then in many cases, in fact, in 2 cases that I can remember, we defended our case and we were successful, and the grant and the funders gave us the grant, even though we are for profit. I mean, this is a challenge that I hope, we really hope, and I have spoken with other news organizations that are also for profit, which when we discuss it in private, we say, well, we have the same issues and we have the same, we do the same as a nonprofit organization. So why make a difference just because our legal status is for profit? So those is, I wish that challenge will go away. I think it will make our life so much easier. But I want to close my presentation by leaving you with 2 recommendations that I took from an article written by Richard Toffel, who is the former president of ProPublica. And he said to funders, make fewer, larger grants, give multi-year grants. I couldn't agree more with those 2 recommendations, because if a funder really wants to make a difference in the digital transformation of a news organization, I think we need to think about that. I mean, big, larger grants, not $25,000 grant, but larger than that, and definitely 3 years or 5-year grants. Thank you.
Next, we wanted to go to Liza from Solutions Journalism Network.
Thank you, Lizzy. I am Liza Gross, VP of Practice Change for Solutions Journalism Network. Very, very glad to be here. Thank you, Lenfest. Thank you, Yossi, for brainstorming this and bringing it to fruition. And I don't know if she is in the room, but my eternal gratitude to Jennifer Preston, who believed of the Knight Foundation at that time, who believed in the concept of collaboration and solutions journalism. And that is the guiding principle of the Local Media Project, the initiative that I steward at the Knight Foundation, very much supported by an excellent team. We work in the intersection of collaborations and solutions journalism. And what we're interested in is in reinforcing the local media ecosystem, what is there already. It's, of course, one can always come in and create a new, we heard Mr. Bainham yesterday about bringing the banner to Baltimore. And this is, there are many responses that can help us in this moment of turbulent transition. But what we are interested in is in how can we support and strengthen the local media ecosystem? How can we help them leverage each other's strengths and sort of overcome what I call the fall instincts of competition? Of course, there are some instances when one has to compete, but many others, especially when you're addressing basic informational needs of the community around the big challenges of a community, you don't need to compete. Working together will bring better journalism and will better inform and engage the citizens. So like Yossi at Lenfest, I have both perspectives in the sense that we are funders, but we're also grantees. And so I will speak a little bit about what was my pitch tonight, and to Jennifer and to Karen Runlet in night, and then a little bit of what we try to bring knowledge that we want to share with the collaborative so that they can become sustainable. Of course, we have Hilda here. Thank you, Hilda. And we have other two representatives of other collaboratives who can speak at length about that. No, actually, I'm sorry. Glenn is with Hilda in the same collaborative. And then we have Melanie from New Hampshire. So my idea was to say that collaboration can really transform and sustain a media ecosystem that is fragile. It is not the solution, it's one of the solutions. We are facing a huge transformation in journalism on many levels, erosion of confidence, trust in the news, an existential crisis, but also a financial crisis. Our local models have eroded. So what would a collaboration among existing news organizations in a local media ecosystem do to reinforce that local media ecosystem? And not only traditional news organizations. Our collaboratives also include news adjacent organizations, for example, libraries. Mecklenburg Library in Charlotte is an incredibly valuable member of that collaborative. Academic institutions, we have a lot of universities participating in our collaboratives, and they have been also incredibly valuable contributors. So how do we create a collaboration that is representative of the community it serves and can generate content, editorial content that is equitable, diverse, and captures exactly the complexities of that community? So that it was the guiding principle of our formula or of our model. And we've been fortunate enough also to find a receptive ear with the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation, who have also joined in supporting this idea. At the moment, we're running about a dozen collaboratives throughout the country, and we hope to bring that number to 15 at the very least to complete the terms of our grant with Knight. As a grantee, one or two takeaways that I want to share with in this session is we make a big effort to really stick to what we promise and be very specific about what we think we can do, what we think will work, when we have to introduce course corrections, why we are introducing them. At all times, maintain a dialogue, maintain that transparency that shows that we are really serious about what we have promised. And the idea that we want to make sure when we go to other funders or when we want to expand our pool of funders, that perhaps not every potential funder is suitable. Place-based foundations have been very generous to our collaboratives, and we hope to increase that group. But we know that not all philanthropic funders are at the moment ready or willing to invest in this concept, and that's okay. So we will just keep on fighting. From the standpoint of funder, what we hope to do with our collaboratives, they work with us for 2 years. And in the second year, we invest a lot of time helping them develop a strategic plan and also reaching out to funders, place-based funders or national funders, and helping them craft their narrative, their unique message, with the idea that when you're in a collaborative, you can feel free to do also your individual fundraising. You don't cannibalize that by working also towards creating funds or fundraising for your collaborative. There is a saying in Spanish, el dinero llama al dinero, money beckons money. So if you really are fighting for crumbs and maintain a mentality of scarcity, this is not going to work. But if you manage to stay in the space of opportunity and think about making the pie bigger, we are pretty confident that this would eventually work. And we try to infuse our collaboratives with that perspective as well. So I will end it there for the moment and pass it on to the next speaker, Lizzy.
Thank you, Liza. Let's go next to Melanie, please.
Hi, I'm Melanie Plenda. I'm the director of the Granite State News Collaborative, and in describing our collaborative, I sort of want to describe us how I describe us to fundraisers, and I think that we come from a place of having, at least, especially over the 18 months, we've been successful, and it's working. Like, it actually works. Like, in concept collaboration, you think, oh, this is great on paper, but in your back of your mind, you're like, how is this? What? But you're willing to take that leap. And then when you see it work, when you see it come together and you're like, oh my God, this is really working, you almost can't believe it. So what I didn't realize when I first took this job was that fundraising involved a lot of public speaking, which actually, fun fact, makes me break out in hives. So I'm going to read what I have because that's where I like to live, because I do this a lot more often than I'm used to. But reading kind of works for me. So I will read what I tell funders, and I hope you can kind of get a sense of who we are and how we work and why we've been successful. So the Granite State News Collaborative is a collective of more than 20 local media, education, and community partners working together to produce and share news stories on the issues that most impact our state, which is New Hampshire. The hope is that by working together, we can provide more information to more communities across New Hampshire than we could individually. And our collaborative literally is statewide. We cover every corner of our state with full participation. Almost full participation. All our partners participate. The ones who aren't in our partnership yet, obviously don't. We do this by sharing partner-generated news, coordinating coverage on statewide events and issues, and co-producing project-based series and stories. As we were first getting our sea legs, we were very much solely project-focused, but during the pandemic, we were able to not only work on projects together, but establish a sustainable, replicable model to share and co-produce high-quality journalism on both longstanding and emerging issues facing our communities every day. And we did that largely by being able to see where were the gaps so that we're not duplicating efforts. And in not duplicating efforts, we are able to conserve, outlets are able to conserve their resources, but not at the expense of the journalism. We can actually still produce really high quality journalism. And if we can do that for our partners, or our partners are doing that for each other, then they can redeploy resources in more local, hyper locally focused news, where that sometimes gets short shrift if they're working on something else. And we've seen that happen. So what does that mean, and what does that look like? Well, that means in the last 18 months or so, our partners cross-published more than 2,500 partner and collaborative produced stories. Our collaborative freelancers produced more than 600 rigorously reported pieces of journalism that include investigative, accountability, and solutions models, which has been really great for us. We've launched a digital public affairs show and 2 podcasts, established a community edit team. We collectively covered the 2020 general election. We brought news in Spanish to New Hampshire, and both of those, the last 2 things, had never been done in New Hampshire before, and we were able to do that together. And not the least of which, in addition to kind of that day-to-day stuff we're doing to help each other, which shows our partners and our communities that, how this can work and how this can be a benefit. We've also launched a community-driven multi-year initiative examining race and equity in New Hampshire with systemic focus areas that include policing and criminal justice, economic opportunity, affordable housing, health, education, environmental justice, and access to civic engagement. We are able to do that because we have so much buy-in from our partners, because partners have volunteered to take each of those areas and really dig in, and then we can help with the rest, which is excellent. So we've been able to really cover a lot, but still go deep and do rigorous quality reporting. We've also been able to see concrete examples of increased civic engagement, policy change, and attitudinal change as a result of the work we're doing together. We've increased support and participation from our collaborative partners, our community organizations, and local foundations. In this effort, since 2019, we've been able to raise more than $495,000 between national and local funders, which is, you know, for a little tiny thing like us is really kind of cool. And usually I'm the only one kind of doing it. So I'm pretty proud of that. And especially from someone who didn't ever think this was going to be our job. And we've also been able to gather proof that our existence in the New Hampshire journalism ecosystem has been transformational. It's helping to raise everyone's boat to do what they do best, which is produce more trusted local news and information for their communities. So that's what I like to tell funders, and I think those are all things that can be tracked and proven. I'm a journalist at heart, so I don't like to say it unless I can show it. And I think those are things we can show. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about more of this later.
Whew, Melanie is a hard act to follow, but I believe in Glenn Burkins, so we'll go to Glenn and Charlotte next.
Hi, I'm Glenn Burkins. I publish QCityMetro.com. We are a website in Charlotte, or a platform in Charlotte, not just website, that serves the African-American community. We celebrate our 13th year this month. So we've been doing this a long time. I guess I would preface my remarks by saying that you know, I've been a journalist now for about 40 years. And so I'm a consummate competitor, if you will. And so when I first heard about the idea of collaboration, I was skeptical, I'll be honest. But I'm on my third collaboration now, and that should tell you something. Collaboration works. It works not only for the media organizations, but it especially works for our readers. At its best, for our viewers or our audiences, because not everyone in our collaboration is a print publication. As Liza said, we have universities, we have the library, we have television, we have print in the various formats. And by the way, our primary focus so far has been covering Charlotte's housing shortage, affordable housing shortage. As you know, Charlotte is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. Tons of people are moving here. The cost of living here has just gone through the roof. So we're trying to find solutions-based, we're trying to write about and cover solutions-based approaches to affordable housing. When I think about collaboration, it's really about pooling resources, and sometimes those resources are financial, but I really think, as important as the finances are and the fundraising, I really think that it's much more about pooling talent. It's about pooling ideas. Everyone in our collaboration, the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative, which, as you heard, Hilda is a member. Everyone brings something really unique to that table. There are people there who can help us translate stories. There are people there who have great reporting skills. There are people who have editing skills. There are people who have video skills. And by pooling those resources, and I know this is repeating what has already been said, but we're able to better serve our audiences collectively than we ever would be individually. Yes, the fundraising is important. It allows us to do the work that we do. But I like to think of this as much more than just about fundraising, as important as that is. It's really about finding the resources and the journalism assets you need, putting them in the same space, and having each of them do what it does best. And so I will stop talking there and hope to talk a little more later.
We'll have a whole breakout room to join Glenn and continue that conversation, but we'll go to Rashad now.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. Looking forward to talking in the breakout rooms a little more. I am the co-director of the New Mexico Local News Fund. And like Lizzy, we are journalism support organizations. So rather than doing journalism ourselves, we work to support the local news ecosystem, us in New Mexico. I think rather for us, a really big priority for our organization is raising the profile of journalism more broadly as a cause worthy of supporting. Because especially in a state like New Mexico, where philanthropic resources are so scarce, and where there's such a high amount of just need for all sorts of philanthropic support, right? That it's important to really stake a claim with funders and with the public, and show that access to news and information is a critical need of people. It impacts all of the priorities that philanthropists have across, health, housing, government work, government accountability. And so just showing that connection of how journalism links together all these substantive areas of people's lives, and that as it disappears, as it's threatened, that it has real impacts on people. We also, like all the others, we love supporting collaboration in our state. We started a Southern New Mexico focused collaboration at the beginning of this year, focused on the legislature, because just from the community conversations that we've had assessing the news and information needs of people in New Mexico, one consistent theme was that people in Southern New Mexico felt they were just disconnected from the discussions in the Capitol up in Santa Fe around legislative appropriation and how their tax dollars are being spent. And so, so many of the newsrooms in Southern New Mexico are just, low resource organizations. It's a small population, it's a very rural part of the state. And so we created a position for a collaborative legislative reporter that could work with a number of newsrooms throughout Southern New Mexico, provide content to all of them, as well as other outlets. Content was free to any outlet in the state that wanted to run it and use it. And it was just a really great success story because it showed that these organizations serving very different communities, different mediums. We had TV, print, online news organizations participating, have this shared interest in successfully informing their audiences and working together. And so we are in the process of funding to expand that collaboration to look at the rebuilding from COVID as Southern New Mexico recovers and grows. And yeah, we're just really excited about that. And I'll leave more to talk in the breakout sessions. Lizzy?
Thanks, Rashad. Like Rashad, I come to this from a funding angle. The North Carolina Local News Lab Fund is a pooled fund. We're housed at North Carolina Community Foundation. And since the jump in 2016-17, we've been deploying funds in service of an ecosystem, a systems change approach. And it's going to take all of us to fix these long-standing systemic problems approach. So to do that, we get to support not only individual news organizations, but also collaboratives, and then a support base that also helps in turn layer on some more capacity building and connecting and convening for collabs too. So we've done this with just over $2.5 million deployed. That's to just over 30 organizations, depending upon how you count them, since fall of 2018. 2018. So all in all done, we've not been around that long. We don't have a reserve or a corpus that we draw from. All of our funding is raised and then deployed. So we kind of turn money quickly in our organization. And we do this in collaboration with both local funders and national funders. And one of the big hypotheses for us in North Carolina has been, hey, is national money from our partners at Democracy Fund an incentive for local funders who didn't fund news on the face of it, or didn't fund journalism, or didn't see their stake in local news and information systems? Does it get them in the game? And does it unlock more funding for organizations that are doing critical work? I'll go ahead and spoil the plot. It's working, as Melanie said. It's working in a way that gives me joy and hope for what's possible here, and in other states too, because we've added 4 new North Carolina funding partners in the last 20 months, spurred in large part by the urgency of the pandemic and the clarity that local news is civic infrastructure. And if we don't know what the heck is going on, we do not have a prayer of keeping ourselves and our communities safe and functional. So place-based foundations, ones that are in, as like one of them likes to say, like they're quote in jail. They've got a particular county group that they have to direct all of their funding to because they're a healthcare conversion fund, so written into their bylaws, to statewide private foundations who have more flexibility and more discretion, and all of them together leveraging their funds. Long story short, we've got a lot to talk about, learned a lot, some of it the hard way, and would be grateful to talk with more of you about what you're thinking about bringing funders together, again, for leverage and for more dollars and less problems, and for the opportunities that can really create to change people's sense of their stake as funders in local news and information. So that as a lead in, we are going to go to those breakouts next. We have 3. First one is to why consider a journalism collaboration. So that's room 1. And in room 1, we're going to be hanging out with Liza and Hilda. Room 2 is what to expect when starting to fundraise for a collaboration. And room 2, your hosts will be Melanie and Glenn. And then room 3, Rashad and I will host a conversation about finding your quote easy button for funder collaboration. So 3 options again. So why consider journalism collaboration, what to expect, and then easy button. Looking forward to those conversations and then recapping them back here with you in the main room.
And you should be able to choose your room. We just opened them all. And if you're having trouble, let me and my colleague Tiara, who's listed as Summit Event, know, and we can assign you to whichever room you would like to go. So feel free to drop that in the chat or just call us out. And thank you everyone for your wonderful presentations, and we'll see you in the breakouts. Rodney, room 2 with Glenn, sending you on your way. Anyone, Maria, room 3. And turn it back over to Lizzy and Rashad and everyone else. Does anyone have any takeaways from their group that they wanted to share?
It looked like breakout room 2 was hopping based on the notes doc. So maybe we start there. Feel free to raise your hand, put a plus in the chat, reaction emoji, whatever your favorite flavor of please pick me is. Get your voice in the room.
You should just call on people, Lizzy.
I could lean into Mean Lizzy.
Also,
How about
everyone,
go ahead, Yossi. Sorry about that.
I was just going to say, please feel free to share your contact information in the Google Doc, because the chat is going to go away once we end this. And so I want to make sure people have access to it afterward. That's all I wanted to say. Back over to you.
Yeah, so maybe I lean on the facilitators in that room. So Glenn, I'm curious, was there anything that you wanted to lift up from that breakout?
Sure. I think there were a lot of there was a lot of discussion there around reluctance and how to convince reluctant counterparts that collaboration works. There was also discussion about getting those initial funds. Kind of what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you form the collaboration and then go after the funds, or do you get the funds and then try to bring in media organizations to collaborate? One of the pieces of advice that I gave around all of that, because there was also discussion about how funds are divided once you get the money. And one of the pieces of advice that I gave is that it really helps to have a director, someone who's a neutral party. We have Chris Rudisell, who's on this call. He's done great work with CJC. He's a neutral arbiter, if you will, someone who's looking out for the collaborative first and foremost, but also looking out for those individuals, and he's a great arbiter for our collaborative.
Thanks for letting me lean on you, Glenn. These notes look super rich, and I'm grateful to have Chris in the room too to add to the conversation. All right. Someone like a last word. I mean, it seems like we could take that whole second breakout room and turn it into a series of sessions, if I'm hearing what other people are writing correctly. Yossi, I'll turn it back to you. It seems like people had a lot to chew on, but our end of the day, at least for us East Coasters.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and for the presenters. This was so remarkable and a really great conversation. We hope we'll be able to continue it. I know Will, our colleague, has been joking in the planning process that this could be a 6-month course. And so there's plenty to go over, and hopefully we'll be able to continue the conversation. And we hope you'll come back at 4 o'clock Eastern for our next conversation on creating community-centered and equitable fundraising practices. Jill from Cityside, who's actually here, will be helping to lead that, and I know it's going to be terrific. So hopefully we'll see you in a half hour and again tomorrow as well. So thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you.